Hi, I'm Kid ShoBiz, and I'm here with.
Leonard Kirk.
And you are a comic artist?
Yep.
And what comics do you do?
Well, I have done a wide range of them. I just finished up my run on Fantastic Four for Marvel. I've done a bunch of other comics for Marvel as well, like X Factor and Captain Britain. I've done comics for DC, like Supergirl and JSA. I've done titles for other groups like Bloodhound and Freshman and just Witchblade, Tomb Raider, whatever anybody will pay me to draw.
So, are some of your comics white and black, or are they all color?
They're mostly color now. When I first started, I actually did do some black and white comics, but that was a while back. That was well over 20 years ago.
What was your first comic you made?
Oh my goodness. My very first comic I made, it was not actually the first one published. First comic I made was something called, oh great, now I'm blanking on the name. Well, anyway, it was a comic written by Lowell Cunningham, the man who did the original Men in Black series, and that the movies were based on after that. I did a story for him, and he actually wrote another book that was tied in with the old TV show and film series Alien Nation. That was the second project I worked on, but it wound up being the first project that was ever published just because of a scheduling change.
What is your favorite comic you made?
Oh my goodness, that is a really tough one. Definitely high up on the list would be books like, like Fantastic Four, just now. that one's pretty tough to beat. But also books like Captain Britain and Agents of Atlas, and I really, really enjoyed also working on Bloodhound, a book that you probably will not be allowed to read for at least another 10 years. but it was a lot of fun.
And I heard you also do Marvels, don't you?
Yep, I have been working with Marvel now for several years. A number of the titles I just mentioned, Fantastic Four, Agents of Atlas, Captain Britain, X Factor, those are all work that I've done with Marvel.
What is it like to be with Marvel?
Pretty good. I mean, the paychecks generally show up, so that's good. And really, it's kind of funny. I've met very few people at Marvel. I've met a few of the editors, been to conventions and whatnot. But since I work out of home, I don't generally get over to the offices or what have you. So a lot of the time my dealing with them is over the internet, over email, over the phone. That's about it.
What is the comic that you've been working on most of the time?
The longest run I ever had on a comic book was Supergirl. That was with DC. That was a while back, and I was on that book, I think, for about 6 years. So that was quite a long run. The Fantastic Four book that I just wrapped up, I was on that for about a year and a half.
And what are you working on now?
Well, I am just getting started on a new project with Marvel, which I'm not allowed to say what it is yet. But James Robinson, the writer on Fantastic Four, he and I are still together. We're just jumping off of Fantastic Four and onto this new project. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of work with the new Captain Canuck series that's being put out. And I just got word that I'm going to be doing at least a variant cover, hopefully some more, but at least a variant cover for Archie Comics for the current run being written by Mark Waid. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And I see you're working on a drawing right there.
Yes, this is a commission picture. Someone here at the show asked for. This is a character, Deja Thoris, from the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars stories, John Carter stories, World of Mars. And so that's what he asked for. That's what he's getting.
And what did you do before you made comics?
Oh, I cried a lot. No, actually, I pretty average, normal. I mean, I pretty much decided when I was 12 that this is what I wanted to do. Either this or be an astronaut. But as it turned out, I'm terrified of heights, so that didn't work out. But I really, really wanted to get into comics, but I just studied, traditional stuff, went through high school, and in university I did study art, general art, painting, sculpture, stuff like that. And once I graduated, I simply got together a whole bunch of pages for submission, and I mailed them out. Actual mail, for those of you too young to remember, the kind you put in an envelope and send somewhere. And I sent that out to about a dozen publishers, and thankfully a couple of them called up and said, we'd like to work with you, and that was it. It was quite a few years before I was making enough to actually live off of it, but at least I was getting my name out there and having a lot of fun.
What did you usually read when you were a little kid? What kind of comic?
I remember reading a lot of Incredible Hulk comics, especially back when Sal Buscema was drawing. He was drawing that book for years. One of the earliest artists whose names I remember, him and Ross Andrew, who was doing a bunch of Spider-Man work. Loved all of that. Of course, remember growing up with Kurt Swan drawing Superman, Jack Kirby drawing everything. But yeah, I read a lot of books like that, and Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Justice League, Fantastic Four, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty much anything and everything I could grab a hold of.
And when you were a kid, what did you like to draw most?
Again, mostly what I read. Lots of superhero stuff. Although I drew some, science fiction and horror comic sort of things as well. But yeah, it was mostly superhero stuff. I was copying a lot of the images I'd see in the books, and that's how I'd learn how to do some of the figure work. Later on, I started actually learning how to really draw and not just trace other people's stuff. But pretty much the entire time, it was mostly comic book related.
So your favorite thing when you were a kid, when you were with comics, was Marvels? Like
I'd say for the most part, yeah. I mean, a lot of Marvel and DC, but that was what I saw most often. When I was younger, we didn't have a lot of the comic specialty shops we have today, so the range of what I would see would be mostly the mainstream stuff like DC and Marvel. Harvey Comics, so I'd pick up some things like Richie Rich and Casper and Hot Stuff and what have you. But yeah, it was mostly the big names.
And there you have it. I am Kid ShoBiz, and I was here with Leonard Kirk at the Toronto Comicon at Sunday, and see ya.